Mixed martial arts, which involves two men fighting each other, has its fair share of colorful personalities. No one in the sport has ever been more in the limelight than UFC President Dana White, who is regarded as both one of the most honest people on the planet and one of the most foul-mouthed. The purpose of today's video is to address those UFC fighters who had a long beef with Dana White and want to beat him. Keep watching until the end. You might be blown away by fighters who want to knock out Dana. In spite of the fact that White has never stepped inside the octagon, he has experienced some serious wars during his tenure. However, these are times when the best fights occur outside the cage, and these individuals have learned the hard way that pissing off Dana White is not the best course of action. Number 5. Tito Ortiz. As we begin with number 5, we have this guy named Tito Ortiz. The Fertitta brothers, childhood friends of Tito White, bought the UFC from SEG in 2001 after Tito and Dana were close friends in their early UFC days. Dana's departure from Ortiz's side after he took over as UFC president soon soured the relationship. What's really at stake? It was largely caused by a financial disagreement. Ortiz wanted more money than the UFC was willing to pay for him to face his old friend. They came to an agreement only after Randy Couture defeated Liddell in the Liddell fight. A win over Patrick Cote and Vitor Belfort in early 2005 put Ortiz back on the winning track after he lost to Couture and Liddell. In spite of this, Tito walked away from his contract after the Belfort fight, believing he was worth more money than White.
That's all they care.
That's what all these guys feel like, slaves.
No.
These guys are competitors.
It comes as no surprise that White reciprocated. It was a surprise to see Tito return to the UFC that year, but what was even more surprising was a clause in his contract that stipulated he could take on Dana in a boxing match. As odd as it seemed, Tito chose not to fight, despite a documentary called Bad Blood. Earlier training sessions, his detractors said he had been beaten by Dana, an amateur boxer. As a result, Ortiz's contract with the UFC ended even more acrimoniously. He wore a shirt saying "Dana is my biatch" at the weigh-ins for his final fight, eventually leaving the organization. It was incredible to see how they reconciled again, and Ortiz returned to White's good graces just over a year later. In the UFC, the relationship seemed to be doing well for 3 years, and Ortiz was even inducted into the Hall of Fame. However, the two men fell out again when he moved to rival promotion Bellator. Who knows how long their reconciliation will last, but they are said to have made up again. Number 4. Randy Couture. The 4th place on our list goes to Randy Couture. He refused to participate in the UFC's earliest video game back in 2002 when Dana became president of the UFC. Couture's relationship and his new boss got off to a bad start. Although Couture struggled initially, he eventually became the UFC's go-to man, winning 4 titles in the process. In 2007, however, things changed. Despite being the reigning heavyweight champion, Couture decided to walk out of the UFC, feeling his contract with them prevented him from fighting Fedor Emelianenko, who refused to sign with White.
I have no relationship with the UFC, and that's largely because of Dana White.
During their time together, Dana accused Couture of lying on numerous occasions, and Couture responded by suing the UFC. After a year of abandoning the fold, Randy Couture returned to the fold after Zuffa responded in kind, banning his Extreme Couture clothing line. Despite the apparent healing of the relationship, Couture burned his bridges with Dana once again when he left the UFC for rival promotion Bellator in 2011, rather than joining the UFC and Fox as an analyst. Dana was naturally furious and attacked Couture in the media every chance he got.
The reason he's not in the UFC anymore is because he could not pass a drug test. The guy couldn't pass a drug test.
Despite Randy's desire to unleash his trademark ground and pound on Dana, he wants the U.S. Congress to impose the Muhammad Ali Reform Act on MMA, which is quite dangerous. Any right hook or elbow would probably do more damage to Dana than this move. It's just like how these giant, powerful fighters love to punch each other's faces when fighting. If you guys can please hit the like and subscribe button, you'll be the first to be notified when we publish a new video. Number 3. Mark Hunt. In our list of Dana's challengers, Mark Hunt comes in at number 3. Mark Hunt is one of the longest tenured fighters in the UFC heavyweight division. While he has only taken on Dana recently, his grudge still burns more strongly than any other on this list.
Said Rusty Falk is going into your fucking eyeballs, you and your little pussy friends.
As a member of the UFC roster still embroiled in a lawsuit against Zuffa, mainly Dana, Hunt accuses Zuffa of everything from fight fixing to racketeering to to even ignoring other fighters' doping. A certain amount of truth can be found in the Aussie Star's statement. The WWE superstar and former UFC champion was selected to fight him at UFC 200 last summer, but because of a strange loophole, Lesnar was allowed to re-enter testing relatively late on. In the end, Brock defeated Hunt by unanimous decision, but he tested positive for clomiphene, a banned performance enhancer.
Heavyweight contender in the world, Mark Super.
As he had already faced Antonio Silva and Ben Rothwell in the past, Hunt was fed up with fighting steroid-enhanced opponents. UFC turned a blind eye to doping, and he filed a lawsuit against them. Despite continuing to fight since the incident, Hunt's recent booking against Marcin Tibera was canceled due to concerns over an interview where he admitted to having memory loss. There has been no easing of Hunt's fury towards Dana since then. As a result of his removal from the Tibera fight, he let out an explicative-filled rant and has vowed to bring the UFC to its knees. The next time he sees that bloke, he'll probably, quote, knock him out, end quote. Number 2. Demetrious Johnson. Many people, including Dana White, have rated Demetrious Johnson as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Moreover, he's classy enough to seem to have put his differences with the UFC president behind him, at least for the time being. The length of time that will last depends on Dana's volatile nature, however.
The media claims he's the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Right. I think Conor McGregor is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world.
After 10 consecutive title defenses, Johnson was charged with fighting former bantamweight champion TJ Dillashaw in a so-called super fight that would see Dillashaw lowering his weight to 125 pounds. A ranked challenger, but a much less well-known name than Dillashaw, Johnson would prefer to fight Ray Borg if Dillashaw could not make the weight. As Johnson explained in an astonishing rant on social media, Dana and the UFC brass had tried to lowball his pay, pressuring him into fighting Dillashaw, and even threatening to dissolve the flyweight division. It was a relief to see Johnson defend Borg successfully once again after cooler heads prevailed. It is possible that this situation could arise again in the near future, since Dillashaw now holds the bantamweight title and is calling for the super fight with Johnson once again. Number 1. Frank Shamrock. The guy at the top of our list is probably well known to everyone. Tito Ortiz, for example, is one of the most bitter fighters who fell out with Dana White, but he eventually kissed and made up with him. If both parties work together, it's possible to make more money. Frank Shamrock is one of the most legendary UFC champions and one of the most legendary MMA fighters ever. Shamrock, who was retired at the time Dana took over the company in 2001, fell out with the president for reasons that remain unclear. His actions since then, however, have been directed at harming the UFC, be it by bad-mouthing Dana in every interview or by joining forces with every rival promotion, including Bellator, Strikeforce, and Elite XC. He's even issued veiled threats toward Dana in interviews.
Ken Shamrock owes me $175,000.
Causing the UFC president to label him mentally ill. Shamrock has a strained relationship with the UFC, even though he is a former champion at 205 pounds and has successfully defended that title 4 times. He is largely forgotten by the organization. In comparison to Ortiz and Couture, even they haven't been treated that badly. While Dana is out and about, Shamrock is definitely someone he should stay away from. While Dana is out and about,
I know a lot of you fuckers hope I do, but he's gonna make sure I don't.
Shamrock is definitely someone he should stay away from. Does Dana ever have to deal with these individuals who seem quite confident and dangerous? What do you guys think about it? Let us know in the comments. Subscribing to our channel will reward the hard work and research we've put into it. Thank you all so much. Stay tuned for the next one.